2 weeks ago. The question is, it's interesting. If rebirth or reincarnation really exists, how come people cannot remember their previous lives? I think Bunny asked that question. That's an interesting question. And I would like to take it up again, and I rethink about it. I gave some partial answers the other day, and I think that maybe I should deal with it in a little bit more detail, because most people think, well, if there's reincarnation and rebirth, how come I can't remember all my experiences in my past life? Wouldn't it be good if I can remember everything in my past life? Then I can do better in this life. Then I believe in reincarnation. Then I believe in the Buddha. Well, there are several answers to this. The first and most obvious is that even ordinary memory is very restricted and varies greatly in extent and vividness with different people. Even in your present life, can you still remember what happened while you are in kindergarten in grade 1? Even in this life, your memory is restricted. As time, the longer the lapse of time, the less vivid would be your memory. So how can you expect yourself to remember experiences one life cycle ago? And most children remember maybe from the time when they be able to speak until about 7 years old, and after that, there's so many impressions act on their brain, on their mind, so many cravings, so many, for example, jealousy, worries, anxiety. Children have various anxieties. And all these impressions act on their memories, and even past life memories would be erased. So that's the first reason. The first reason is our memory is really restricted. And how can we remember as far back as last lifetime? Secondly, death itself is a memory obliterating, a memory erasing agent. Why is death a memory erasing agent? At the juncture of death, if that person still hang on to the world, he wouldn't let go. He wanted to remember everything about his estates, about his families, about what he's leaving behind. He can't let go of it. He still wants to remember it. It's all a recollection of the past. Then he can't leave. He will be spending maybe months panting with breath in the hospital. Sometimes we know people who are almost departing from this world, they have to be told to let go so that their body, their alaya consciousness will leave their body. So if they don't let go, they can't leave. So they sometimes, when they are thinking about it, they say, I want to let go of everything now. There's no use. I'm dying. I want to let go of all this past that I have. My families, my estates. There's nothing I can do. I got to go. I can't be in this state anymore. So he wants to let go. He intentionally wants to forget about it. In the bardo stage of death, you know what bardo is? B-A-R-D-O. And the bardo stage of death is when a person dies up to the stage when he's going to be reincarnated. Into that intermediate period is the bardo stage. In the bardo stage, sometimes the letting go is not all finished yet. He still sticks around. But when he sticks around too long, he knows, I gotta go. I can't stick around here for too long. And some people attach to it so much to the family members that they stick around their house for many, many years. You don't know about it. You can't see them. They still are around. We heard stories about that. So death itself is a memory obliterating agent. that you are going to a new course of reincarnation. You are going to a new physical body, a new brain. You're going to let go of the old one. You put on new clothes. If you still wear the old clothes, you're not comfortable with it. You got to discard your old clothes. You want to put on new ones. So that's the second reason for it. Death itself is erasing everything out. You, as the past individual, you wanted to erase that. If you hang on to that, you still stick around. You won't feel happy about it when you stick around. The third, another factor, is the nature of the lives in between one human birth and another. You know what I mean? Say, for example, you're a human now, but because of all these bad deeds, you have all this bad karma that you have created. Now, mind you, you and I, everybody we are adding on our karma every day. We're acting, we're speaking, we're doing everything. Every thought creates karma. We are doing all this, good, bad, and neutral. You reap what you sowed. You do bad deeds, you got bad results. Good deeds, good results. Neutral deeds, neutral results. You created your karma. You have the cost of killing. You have the result of being unhealthy and short-lived. You germinate the cost of charity and donation. The final effect is that you'll be rich because you're always giving. So in between one human life and another, say for example you're human now, and because of the bad deeds that you have done, then you reincarnate into the animal realm, for example. If you are in the animal realm, and most animals do not register impressions clearly, a dog, a cat, a rat, all the animals, they don't register, their impressions are not too vivid. And if you reincarnate in the animal's realm for a series of lives, you tend to forget about that past one life during which you were human. You can't forget about it. That's the reason why for some regression therapy, some patients were going through process of hypnosis, and under hypnosis, they'd be able to tell the experiences when they were human. Most cannot, or most could not say anything about a time when they were animals. They can't say, when I was a dog 2 lives ago, my master was like this. When I was a cat, no. Usually when they were humans. You read that book, I introduced that book to you by Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters, and he conducted retrogression hypnosis on more than 200 cases, and most of them, I read that book, most of them couldn't tell their past life when they were as animals. Because the impressions is so unclear, it's so cloudy. Animals don't have vivid impressions. So that's another reason why we can't remember past life. We can't remember animals' lives. And after a series of these reincarnations as animals, we forget about everything. However, a study of the earliest behavior pattern of some children indicate that these children, these subjects for the research, usually remember a lot about their previous lives. They were born into their new lives with some dim awareness of what happened in their past lives. And sometimes they acquire skills, these children acquired skills simply from remembering rather than learning. They just remember from their past life, and they just play the piano like that. They don't have to learn it. They just remember. And sometimes they speak of things that bear no relation to their experiences in their present life. And parents, as a rule, they do not encourage this kind of imagination. They don't want that. They don't want their children to say, I was John in Toronto before I came here as your son. They didn't want to hear that, because that caused a lot of embarrassment and fear. And they don't believe it. They thought that's the child's imagination. Nothing happened like that. They don't believe it. They pay no attention to reincarnation. Why should they believe in reincarnation? They don't want to acknowledge that fact. So they forbid the children to tell anything about their past life stories. So children just shut up, and as time goes on, they can't remember them anymore. Well, there are quite a few scientists. I don't know if you heard about this or you read about this. Professors and philosophers who have done researches in the recollection of past lives of children. And one of the most authoritative is by the name of Professor Ian Stevenson. You can check that from the internet. Stevenson, S-T-E-V-E-S-O-N, Ian Stevenson. And he did a lot of research. He did about 2,000 cases of children. It's the authority on reincarnation. And he is not religious, he's scientific. He conducted research based on empirical evidences. It's just from empirical researchers based on an objective point of view. And other than that, I can read to you, there are the most well-known, of course, are Ian Stevenson. There's also Hemendra Banerjee, Francis Story, the son of a priest who was born in the 1920s. He became an expert in the Theravada school of Buddhism, and his father was a Catholic priest. He became a Buddhist. And Stevenson and Story did their researches in India. They spent 20 years in India, just conduct that empirical evidences of researches of reincarnation based on stories and cases of children. And Ian Stevenson, it's a professor of University of Virginia in the States. And he has collected about 2,000 cases of apparent past life recall. Of these, he has examined more than 200 extensively and reported his findings in books and numerous articles. And I still remember a few of this. Marianne, an example quoted by them, was born in Britain. And she was speaking a language she claimed to be a classical ancient Egyptian language. But nobody understands it. He just know at the age of about 12 or 13, suddenly she talked about a language. She spoke a language that nobody understands. And she said 2,000 years ago, she was an Assyrian being captured by the Egyptian armies. He was captured and enslaved and became a slave dancer. And of course, later he died and he learned that language. Everybody thought he was crazy. She was crazy, speaking a classical Egyptian language pertaining to 2,000 years ago. But the family doctor was interested. He's very scientific oriented. He tape recorded Marianne's language. He tape recorded it and then passed it on the linguistic of Egyptian languages. And that linguistic expert, conducted research on it. And the result is, Marianne was telling the truth. That's really a classical Egyptian language pertaining to about 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. So where did he learn? She learned that language. And how could she remember that 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago, she was a slave dancer in Egypt? Well, there's so many stories about this. A Burmese girl, born in 1953, at the age of 4, told her parents that she was a Japanese soldier. And she wanted to go back to Japan. She never had schooling of geography before. She didn't know where Japan was. A research was conducted on her mentality, on her mental process. And this is what she said in detail. She said, I was a cook in the 1940s in central Burma in the Japanese armies. And one day I was burning timber for fire, cooking for the armies. And suddenly there were a few planes flying down and they were shooting machine guns at us. Everybody rushed for their life, rushed for ambush. And I got shot in my back and I died instantly. But I still have 5 children in Japan. I wanted to go back to see them. He couldn't let go of the 5 children. At the age of 4, she was able to tell all these things. She didn't even know what Japan was. No schooling before. So how do we explain that? If that's not reincarnation, is that a coincidence? Coincidence wouldn't be like that. Unfortunately, the girl couldn't remember which part of Japan. Tokyo, Nagasaki, Yokohama, Osaka, or what name? What's the name of the soldier? Otherwise, that research. And Ian Stevenson and all the Banerjee and all these other researchers, they were doing that. They actually conducted researches in India, Burma, Sri Lanka, and Asia for all these different cases. And they come up with empirical evidences that reincarnation is really truth, something that people have to understand. Another case happened in Alaska that I read about. There's a guy, a fisherman by the name George Williams in Alaska. He was dying at the end of 1949. And before death, he told his son, "Son, if reincarnation really exists, I will come back as your son. And remember, I have a birthmark on my shoulder, on the left part of my shoulder, and under my arm. And if I come back, identify these 2 marks. If you see these 2 marks, that's me." That's what he said. He died sometime in September in 1945. During that time, his daughter-in-law was already pregnant. That's why that triggered the idea that he wanted to come back as the son. And in 1950, sometime in May, she gave birth to a baby boy. They found the same 2 marks, as George Williams said. And George Williams, of course, had a watch, and when he died, all his possessions, the watch was put in the jewelry box of the mom, of the daughter-in-law. And one day, the baby boy was able to see that watch, and immediately he said, "That's my watch." So all these things happen. Some children seem to have acquired particular skill just from remembering from the past lives and not from learning in this present life. For example, among musical prodigies, we find Mozart, a very famous musician. Mozart composed music before he was 4 years old. Beethoven playing concerto at 8 and composing music at 10. And Chopin playing concerts before 9. They learn, they remember all these things before. They just pick them up and it passed on to them. So memories, some of them remember. Their talent were not stifled by their parents, and they will allow, maybe coincidentally, to develop their talent. They remember from their past lives, and they carry it forward to this life. And some couldn't remember. I think only for the talent, or only for geniuses, the talented people, that they can actually, if they can remember coincidentally. I don't know how they can remember, and some can't. Maybe their immediate life was very musical, and they didn't go through the intermediate lives when they were in other areas, in other realms of reincarnation. There's many cases like that. For example, in Burma, around the 1950s, there was a girl who had never learned any Pali before. You know, Pali is another language, Pali language and Sanskrit language. Pali, she never learned Pali before. At the age of 6, she was given a Pali text, Patana Sutra. He was given a page to read for 1 minute. And after that 1 minute, she could just recite it out without one single error. She just one page and glanced at it, and you closed it, and she just recited it without one single error. Well, you could say that's photographic memory, nothing surprising. This girl had a photographic, we call it photographic memory. But she could also understand it though. Photographic memory, can the camera understand the content of the picture? If she had photographic memory, she should not be able to understand the meaning of the Patana Sutra. But she understands it quite well. I guess she could be a monk before, reciting Pali. And I know I've been to the Sri Lankan temple, and I remember last year, Venerable Sarana told me that a few kids, after the session, they could almost memorize some of the Pali texts. Pages. They must have been reading Pali before. So we don't have just this present life. We have a past life. We have the present. And if you keep on reincarnating, you'll have a future life. You don't want that future life anymore. Don't go through any suffering anymore. The Buddha ended reincarnation by not going through reincarnation anymore. We call that samsara. And we'll deal with that. We'll deal with, maybe we should take it up now. Why do we reincarnate? It's good to talk about reincarnation, but why do we reincarnate? You determine that. But to understand this needs a lot of time to elaborate on it. But for the sake of brevity and simplicity, why don't we just pull something, say the Four Noble Truths. We talk about the very basic concept of the Four Noble Truths. Why don't we use the concept of Four Noble Truths and karma for people who don't have very elaborate studies of Buddhism? If we go through too deep and too profound and abstruse, you don't know what I'm talking about. So let's research on the Four Noble Truths. Let's talk about reincarnation with the perspective of a very basic Buddhist teaching the Four Noble Truths and karma. What are the Four Noble Truths? Suffering, causes of suffering, cessation of suffering, and way to cessation of suffering. Do you understand what I mean? The Buddha said this world is full of suffering. We need to find out, so that's the first one, find out suffering. We need to find out the reasons for this suffering. We need to diagnose it. And once it is diagnosed and we know what to do, then we have a way to end this suffering. Then there's no suffering anymore, no more reincarnation. So the first proposition is that suffering is inherent in all forms of existence. You have to understand that. You must not be ignorant about that. You should know that you should be looking for truth. You know you are ignorant, but if you know you're ignorant and you're not looking for truth, you're more than just ignorant. We're at that stupidity because you don't look for further. In the Apollo, in the ancient Greek, the Apollo temple, there was written carved on a column. It says, "Understand thyself. Understand yourself." And then some of these Greek philosophers, one day he said, Greek philosophers, ancient philosophers said, "I heard the god of Apollo utter something." He said, "Socrates is the wisest." And Socrates said, "No, I'm not. And then Socrates continued to think about it. Oh, I know why Apollo, the god Apollo, said I'm the wisest, because I know I'm ignorant. You don't know you're ignorant. I know I'm ignorant. I want to look for the truth. So Socrates go about the market debating. He always say, I'm looking for the real people. And this guy said, there's people around you and you're still looking for people. I want to look for the real people who know they are ignorant and they are seeking the truth. Not many people are seeking the truth. People are just ignorant and they don't seek the truth. So we have to know, we have to understand this world. The first proposition is that suffering is inherent in all forms of existence. No one can go through life without experiencing physical pain, sickness, disappointment, and grief. None can escape old age and death. You find exception? No. Suffering is even more prevalent in animals than in human beings. And what we call self, the reincarnated entity, just for the sake of naming it, there's no such thing as self, but just for the sake of naming it, is merely a current of consciousness linked to a particular physical body. It's a current of consciousness linked to your physical body. It's not the simile, it's like a light bulb. The light bulb exists. It has a current in it. Our body exists, it has consciousness in it. That light bulb one day is going to go out. One day it's going to be broken. It's changing. That light bulb will not be guaranteed permanent. Can you guarantee a light bulb to be permanent? As well as you can guarantee your body is permanent. A light bulb is no permanent than your body. As a matter of fact, it's more short-lived than your body. What's the difference? That light bulb is going to go one day. Your body is going to go one day. What sustained that light bulb? Electric current. What sustained yourself? The current of consciousness, the stream of consciousness that goes in rapidity. Every second counts. What is your consciousness? It's a whole stream of thought. Good thought, bad thought, thought of jealousy, hatred, disappointment, fear, everything. This consciousness fluctuates. This life stream is a rapid succession of consciousness moments, resembling the running of a reel in the projector, in the projector view. So do you recognize suffering? To explain reincarnation, you have to know we reincarnate. Reincarnation is not good, Reincarnation is suffering. And the other day we talked about love. We talked about love. I think Lee brought up a point about love, and I said unconditional love is compassion. If love is not reciprocated, love is selfish love. And most love is selfish love. If a husband loves the wife and the wife says, I don't love you anymore, then it's going to be hatred. Because each party expects the other party to reciprocate that kind of love. There's very few unconditional love. As a matter of fact, love brings out the flaw of responsibility. I remember I know a couple who got married in California. As a matter of fact, this is something I read in a book. That's an interesting book I read by Adeline Ma. Maybe you should read about that book too. It's a very good book. It's called Falling Leaves. It's really good, and maybe I shouldn't mention names. Anyway, there was a couple who got married in California, and they had a son later. To make the story short, and they had a divorce. And the wife wanted a divorce. They already have a son, 3 or 4 year old son. And the husband was so irresponsible, so without love. We're talking about love now. That's why I'm bringing out this example. And the husband said, okay, divorce. As long as I'm not responsible for the alimony, As long as I have, under the Californian law, I have 1/2 of your estates, I don't care. So they had a divorce. The man did not want to, no love to his own child. There's unconditional love. There's no love, lack of love. Absolutely none. So what a man. Should he learn something about love? Should he learn something about responsibility? On the other hand, I knew a case which is very interesting. The mom had 2 daughters, and the woman passed away at the age of 35, and the 2 girls, 6 and 7. And before she passed away, she passed away of a terminal sickness. And she wrote out 18 cards. And she left a legacy that it's very exceptional. On every birthday of the child, there's a card given to the child. It says, Sally, Mom loves you very much. I've always been with you. Mom is always loving you. I'm away, but I'm with you all the time. For 18 cards given to the 2 children. So that's unconditional love. She passed away, but she still remembered the 2 children. The most interesting, the most belovable gifts, legacy ever left for the children. So on a comparison, that's unconditional love. Every Christmas, every birthday cards, age 7, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, giving advice to the children. What a mom. So we're not talking about love, So this is out. The second of the noble truth is that the cause of suffering in the round of rebirth is craving. So the second noble truth is what causes the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Craving. What is craving? Desires. Desires for what? Desires for fame, reputation, desire for sex, for money, for wealth, eating, satisfaction of your senses, all these things, all this craving. Because of this craving is conjoined with ignorance. Together, craving and ignorance produces thought which carry themselves into actions and speech, which result in karma, all this karmic force. Where does karma come from? Karma comes from your own action, your speech, your thought. Bad, good, not just bad karma, You produce good karma sometimes. Good, bad, neutral, all the time. All deeds result in karma. Karma is a difficult subject, abstruse and profound. Simply put, the law of karma says every time an individual acts, whether his actions on physical, mental, or psychic level, he creates an effect that will be returned to him, either in this current lifetime or in the future lifetime. You reap what you sow. So that's reincarnation. You've done something wrong, you develop or you cultivate bad karma in this lifetime. You think you can get away with it? You can't get away with it. You reap what you sow, good or bad. Be careful. That's why we have a whole school of learning in the Buddhist canon. We call it the Vinaya, the precepts, the observance of a morality standard. You got to watch yourself. Your thought starts from your thought. You got to watch your thought, your thinking. You start from the origin, not just curbing your actions. You start from where the source of the suffering is. Rebirth is like a cycle of existence without discerning. Without rebirth is a cycle, one life after the another. without discernible beginning and without end. Without beginning, without ending. This wheel of existence does not exist in time, but time exists in it. You see the difference? Reincarnation does not exist in time, but time exists in it. So there's no beginning. Time is created by existence. The concept of time is based on your discriminating mind. There's no beginning. There's no end. When you attain nirvana, you go beyond time. You go beyond space, beyond time. Because existence and time always conjoin each other in existence. Reincarnation and time, they go hand in hand. There's reincarnation, there's time and space. No reincarnation, no time and space. So why are you always looking for reincarnation, whereas you want to get out from it? Why are you looking for a beginning, whereas you want to get out from that beginning or end, or the time concept, or the space concept? Now the Four Noble Truths, because we didn't have that much time to cover it. Like the revolution of the planets around the sun goes on perpetually simply because there is nothing to stop it. But it can be brought to an end by the individual for himself through an act of will, of his will. The act of will consists in turning craving into non-craving, turning ignorance into wisdom, turning ignorance into prajna paramitta. Remember we talked about prajna paramitta? When this is accomplished, nirvana is reached. Then there is no more rebirth. The way to the cessation of suffering is the Four Noble Truths of self-discipline and meditation, leading to purity, to perfect purity and insight wisdom. The Eightfold Path and all this samatha or samatha and vipassana meditation and all these, a whole body of teaching that enable you to create that act of the will to get out from samsara, to get out from reincarnation, to purify your karma, to go in that beyond, get away from samsara. You've been reincarnating, you and I. We've been reincarnating in this world. We got to get out, no more. We got to cut off that consciousness current to that eternity, to that place where there's no more suffering, to that place where we don't have time and space. This Noble Eightfold Path, we've been talking about it, and maybe next time I can bring them up and talk about it more in detail. And more than just the Eightfold Path, there's volumes and volumes of the Buddhist teaching that have been passed down from the Buddha 2,600 years ago. The Buddhist teaching, the Tripitaka, the Sutra, the Vinaya, and the Abhidhamma, the three jewels, the Sutra, the Vinaya, and the Abhidhamma. Their purpose, their objective, is to bring the cultivation with respect to from three perspectives. From morality, maintenance of morality, maintenance of wisdom, and maintenance of samadhi, or meditation. So in the Chinese language is jie, ding, hui. So there's a lot in it. A lot of the Buddhist teaching. Where do we start? We've got to start somewhere. Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. We start from something simple, but something that if you keep on contemplating on it, it is so profound. Don't underestimate it for the simplicity. If you're at a higher level, you look at it from a different angle, different perspective, it's in very much depth. When an arahat is looking at something, it's different from the Sotapanna. When the Sotapanna is the first level. Sakadagami is the second level. Anagami is the third level. Arahat is the fourth level. In the Chinese language, we call it 出果、二果、三果、四果. They're all looking at one perspective, one concept with different intensity of profundity. It's so rich. The Buddhist literature is, I would say, is the richest human, in the civilization of human, the richest literature of philosophy on earth in terms of volumes. People may say you're prejudiced because you're a monk, of course you praise the Buddhist literature. But in terms of volumes, nobody would deny it. Just in the Chinese language, it's 8,600 volumes of it. And how about in the Theravada school, in the Pali canon, in the Sanskrit canon? It was enough to fill this whole room. Today, remember a few concepts, talking about whether you can remember your past lives. There's so many reasons why you can't remember your past life. And also, if the successful meditator, after so many years of practice, once you achieve that purity, you automatically would acquire at least the 5 supernatural powers. You don't want to, your objective is not to acquire those powers, but those powers will come to you. What are the 5 supernatural powers? Divine vision. Divine visions, that means you have the ability to see anywhere in the universe, in the planet, in the moon, in the Jupiter, in Mars. You can see anywhere. That's divine vision. The second is the ability to hear any sound anywhere. I have to say in the Chinese language first, 天眼通, 天耳通, the ability to hear any sound anywhere. 他心通, the ability to understand the thinking of anyone. 他心通, 宿命通, the ability to know, to remember all past lives. 神主通, the ability to go anywhere and do anything at will. These are the 5 natural powers of the Arhat. The Buddha has one more. The Buddha has 6 supernatural powers. What's that one? That's the final one. The ability to be liberated from all mental afflictions. 漏尽通. This is 六神通. So you want to remember? Why don't you practice more, Bunny? One day you will get this 5 natural powers and you can remember every one of those past lives in you. As a matter of fact, in the Dhammapada, in many of the Buddhist literature, the Buddha talked a lot about his own past lives and about the past lives of his disciples. Very rich literature mentioning past lives of himself and of his disciples in the Buddhist literature. If you're interested, we only live once if we're lucky. If we're unlucky, we go on to reincarnation. In this lifetime, why don't you start your own spiritual odyssey? It is just more than work. Every day you go to work, every day you go to your supper, your dinner, and every day you do the same thing, partying and all that. Why don't you spend your time in some spiritual adventure? Find out more about where you come from, where are you going? How do you promote yourself spiritually? Don't attach to material. And I find fun in doing it. I find I have a lot of wisdom in doing it. I find that there's a lot of interest in doing it. Why don't you do so? Find out more about what the Buddha has been preaching, instead of just spending your time in daily chores and daily routines, doing the same thing every day, doing your job, cooking your meals. Is that all for life? Wouldn't it be boring? Start your adventure. You open your treasure, open your door. You are living in the prison of your own ego. You're all enclosed by your wall, your thick wall of egoism. And there's this little one window. The guy outside locked at the window. And right now it's me, locked at your prison, your ego wall. That guy's locking. Do you care to open the window, take a look? Or you don't really care? Open that little window, take a look outside. There's so much outside. Not just your own ego. There's so much. A whole horizon. You'll never believe it. It's unbelievable. It's endless. We should start the searching. Don't waste your lifetime.